Hey wonderful humans, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Lucy and I'm a PhD student at the University of Birmingham, and today is a slightly different video for my channel, but if you follow me on Instagram you will know that I'm taking 3 weeks off in the PhD. I thought I would bring you along with me and do maybe a couple of weekly vlogs so that you can see what I get up to on my holidays, what a PhD student does I suppose with their holidays during a pandemic. And this first week I'm actually going to Derbyshire with my parents. So I'm currently packing. You're also probably thinking, how much stuff has she packed for 1 week in Derbyshire? I've actually packed for 3 weeks because I'm not coming back here before I go on to my next adventure. So that's why there's so much stuff. Final thing I want to pack, which I am putting in a separate bag, is my books, because I'm going to use this time to catch up on my fictional reading, my non-PhD reading, because I've got a lot of books and I love reading them, but I don't really have the time, so I want to use this time to read it, especially some of the longer books and some of the non-fiction books I've got on my shelf. Now the next day, and if you can tell from behind me, we are now at Chatsworth, which is one of my favourite places to come in Derbyshire. And I feel like I haven't said for this trip, I've been coming to Derbyshire since I was like 8 years old because my mum's from this area, so none of the stuff I'm showing you will necessarily be new to me. I'm kind of like revisiting old favourites. But yes, we are currently going around the Chatsworth Gardens. It's £14 per person to get in, so it's not the cheapest thing to do, but follow me around and I'll show you what you could see if you come here. There's also a house which is gorgeous and amazing, but we've been in there so many times, and to be honest, what with social distancing, we didn't really want to go around it with masks on. So yeah, let's go and enjoy the gardens. So this is the Chatsworth House, which is, I personally think, gorgeous. It's one of my favourite architectural styles. I think it's Georgian. I always recognise it, but I should look it up and figure out what it actually is. But yes, it's beautiful, and if you haven't ever visited, I highly recommend if you're ever in Derbyshire.
Yeah, it's a grand rockery. Not just any of them. It's not a minor.
Yeah, this is like a rockery on a massive scale.
This is a mountain rockery. This is a giant rockery.
Normally you expect rockeries to be like, you sort of walk around them.
The plants. Yeah.
I like this. This is amazing.
So we've walked a bit further in, got a drink because me and Dad were thirsty, Mum didn't have anything, and we're now in the rockery. And the rockery was designed or commissioned by the 6th Duke, William Cavendish, and the designer was a guy called Joseph Paxman, who you might have heard of. I've heard of him, but basically everything you are seeing right now and everything I'll put in the clips is man-made, but it's made to look natural, and obviously it's done on a very grand scale. Things like this waterfall. So this garden was all designed in around 1840, and obviously since then I'm sure there's been some additions and they've added to it, but that is generally when it was put in. So we have now exited the rockery. And what I thought was quite interesting is when Joseph Paxton was called away, because he used to do projects for the Queen and all these important people, his wife Sarah Paxton would manage the garden and oversee the gardens and the pensions, and of course she didn't get paid because this is a woman in the 1800s, but her achievement and kind of the contribution she made to the garden is being recognised today, and I think that's really cool. These busts were commissioned by the 11th Duke of Devonshire, which is pretty much the recent one. Obviously some of them are missing. Don't know who all these people are. Like, it says Lady Emma Tennant, but their name doesn't mean a lot to me. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them here. I can only assume they're people either important to the estate or important to him, or maybe influential figures in the estate's history. Do you think, Dad, they are people important to the estate? People important to the family? Because I don't recognise any of the names.
Yeah, but you recognise her, don't you? She's one of the Mitfords.
Yeah.
Ah, so they are people that have a connection to the estate, probably, or people.
She
was the one that rescued it.
was the one who rescued it and opened it all up to the park.
So it's almost like family busts, and then maybe a few famous people. Because you said Queen Elizabeth was over there. I mean, they're quite nicely done busts. Worth the trip?
Should we come up? That's basically what we're asking.
It's a lily pad. Oh, it's a nice lake.
I thought so.
So we stopped for lunch, and I didn't film that because we just had cheese sandwiches, and now we're going around the kitchen garden, which is quite cute. We also went so it's quite cute. It's huge. This is just like a tiny portion of it, and it was built in 1991, so it's not actually that old, but it's really nice. This is like the rhubarb section, so all this rhubarb, which I love rhubarb. I've made some rhubarb cocktails on my channel actually, if you want to go check them out. And we're nearly at the end, to be honest. We're kind of just heading back, and we've been here for about 2 hours, I would say, and it's been getting busier, I would say that. So we arrived at about 20 to 11, and as it's got closer to midday, more families have arrived, so just something to be aware of. Maybe come earlier if you can, if you want to avoid the bigger crowds. They are loving the kitchen garden. Dad is in his element. So another thing to know is actually scattered around the whole grounds and the whole garden area, there's little signs, little arrows with like, don't go in there or this way. There is sort of a one-way system to obviously help with keeping social distance and things like that. So there are a few obviously areas that clump together, but generally you are pretty spaced out from other people, as hopefully this video has shown you. So yeah, but it's beautiful. So cute. Dad loves talking to people, so he's currently having a chat with one of the gardeners about some
cardoons, I think.
The cardoons. I personally just love the gardener's dog, which you can just see here. So shot. Got your tip. Look how cute the dog is. What tip did you get then?
You basically, in the spring, when leaves are coming up, you clump them, you tie them up and clump them together, and then when you're ready, you can blanch them in the centre, and it's a bit like celery.
Cool, good to know. Hey everyone, so I am back from Chatsworth and I thought I'd just give you like a little lowdown on my thoughts about Chatsworth very quickly, very briefly. It is beautiful, the gardens are amazing. I would highly recommend, if you haven't ever been before, go to the house, but as I said, we've been going to Chatsworth since I was like 8 years old, so I personally, me and my parents didn't see the need to go into the house again, but the house is amazing, the grounds were beautiful and I hadn't been around them for a long time. And I think they did a pretty good job of social distancing. The only thing I would say is definitely try and get there early. As I said, we got there just before 11 and we left probably about 1:30, and at that point people were having to queue to get inside and it was definitely getting busier in the grounds, so go earlier if you can. We also went on a Monday, so take that into account. It could again be busy on the weekends. I mentioned I packed books, but I thought I would quickly share what books I have brought for my 3-week break from PhD work. So, very quickly, because I realise this won't interest most people. Notes for a Bisexual Revolution by Shiri Eisner. Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Rennie Edo-Lodge. Michael Foucault, The Will to Knowledge, The History of Sexuality. White Privilege, The Myth of a Post-Racial Society by Cal Want Papal, I really hope I'm pronouncing that name right. Body Positive Power by Megan Jane Crabb. Invisible Women, Exposing Data Bias in a World Designed for Men by Caroline Corrido Perez. Then for my fiction books, I've got The Falling in Love Montage by Kiara Smith, The Bride Test by Helen Hong, Here's Looking at You by Marie McFarland, Been Here All Along by Sandy Hall, and then I've got Wolf Rain by Nalini Singh and Alpha Night by Nalini Singh. So the hope is that I read all of these during my 3 weeks. That's kind of the plan. That's why I brought them, because as I said, I really want to start reading again, because I feel like I just read for my degree. And yes, I realise some of these are queer romances and some of them have a little bit to do with sexuality, but this is more just fun reading rather than I need to analyse it. And then the book I'm reading at the moment, I'm about 160 pages in. It's a big old book. It's a huge book, but this is The State of Africa by Martin Meredith. So yesterday it just rained non-stop, so we had a very chilled day around the flat, didn't really do a lot, read some books, chilled. It was very chilled. But today it's not raining, so me and Mum, we are going to go to this cute place called Tideswell, which is actually home of the Peaks Cathedral, the Three Peaks Cathedral, it's something like that, and we're just going to have a little explore. Ready with your mask on, glasses off so she can't see anything.
It's a balance between being steamed up.
Hand sanitizer. This is the Debauer Chapel, and it's believed they're a knight and lady, but there's no historical record. But there was a yeoman, which is kind of like just the level below a knight. So yeah, and descendants of the Debauer ancestors funded this stained glass, which is beautiful to be fair to them. This is the chancel of the Cathedral of the Peaks, as it's called. We've got the place to ourselves, so it's very chilled. No social distancing worries. Obviously still wearing the mask. This is the Ladies' Chapel, I think it would normally be. Just like a little side chapel. Can look in. But yes, it is currently closed. Demasking now that we're out of the cathedral. Very pretty, very decorative, but not a quick trip. What would you say, Mum? We were in there for like 20 minutes, if that?
Oh yes, not very long.
I think if it wasn't raining and if it was more of a normal time in the world, you could maybe spend half a day in Tideswell if you went somewhere to eat.
Got something to eat.
Had a little wander around the village, because it's quite a cute village. But if you're just coming to the cathedral, it's like a 20-minute stop on your way to somewhere else, I would say. Lilo is ready to go. So we have taken advantage of the nice weather because it is finally sunshine and we're going to go for a walk around the village Eem, which is historically known as the plague village because back when the plague was ravaging Europe and the UK, when it came to Eem, brought in by cloth merchants, they basically made the decision to quarantine or isolate the village so nobody could come in and out, and a large portion of the population obviously in Eem itself died, but they stopped it spreading across the north and saved hundreds and hundreds of lives. And especially in local history, it's really celebrated, and usually you learn about it to some extent at school in the UK. So we're going to go round. The properties have little plaques on them telling you kind of what happened in that building and to that family, whether they survived, whether they died, what they did, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're just going to go for a little walk, and it's also a cute little village, so we're just going to go around with the dog. So there's little plaques like this scattered around the village, and some of them are related to the plague. Some of them aren't, some of them are just random facts about the village. Okay, so not to do with plague. Super pretty cottage that was owned by Richard Furness, who was a poet. He was born in 1791 and he died at Dor, which is part of Sheffield, in 1857. So if you've ever heard of him as a poet, I personally haven't, but I think he's probably famous quite locally. So this is Eem Hall. Normally you can visit, and we've been around it before, but obviously it is shut at the moment. It's getting quite busy at this end of the village. Yeah, so this is one of the plague-specific plaques I was talking about. So yeah, it just tells you basically who died here in this very nice cottage. You can hear the singing in the background. It's an outdoor funeral that's happening, which is quite a stark reminder that we're currently living in a pandemic, but it's actually quite beautiful. We obviously didn't stick around because that's not very, I don't think that's really our place. I'm not going to suddenly join someone's funeral just because it was outdoors, but a couple of people were, which is their prerogative. Yeah, so we're just now still walking along the village. I would say we're kind of coming to the newer part.
Possibly. I mean, more with the mining, because the village developed, for obviously being very, very old, and it did develop quite a mining industry. And if you walk out on the hills, you can see all the sites of the old mines.
It was famous for its lead mines, which actually first started in the Roman times, but not in the way we would think about it. Basically, they were mining since the late Roman period here, but it was really the 16th century when like the first recorded historical lead mines were up and running in Eyam. And then they closed for a period of time, and then they were reopened in 1937, but again they've closed again. So we finished walking around Eyam. We are now stopped for a drink, I think, at the Miners' Arms. Lilo is whining because Dad has gone inside to make our order. There was also 2 cute coffee shops, but one of them wasn't open and one of them didn't have any outside space, and because we've got a dog we need the outside space. How are you feeling about your first trip outside since coronavirus to a place to eat?
Well, it seems fairly weird.
Yeah.
It was like the first time I went into a supermarket, that felt really weird. Although obviously this is a much safer environment sitting out here than go around a supermarket.
Just to clarify, we are not close to anybody.
Big screen in front of the bar. There are places for empty glasses, another place for joining. You have to fill in a little sheet.
So you would say it's safe?
Yeah, I'd say it's very safe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another day. So, took quite a few treacherous roads to get here. Very much a rural place. You park in a farm, but we are walking towards the Arbor Low Standing Stones, which is like a prehistoric... What?
I'm not sure they're actually stone, but we'll see when we get there.
Okay, we're walking to Arbor Low, which is like a prehistoric site. It might be stones, it might not be. It also has a burial mound. Bring shoes you don't mind getting muddy. So this is the Arbor Low Circle, which does have stones. And Mum and Dad are laughing at me, but I don't care. Dad standing tall against the elements, keeping watch. This is the Arbor Low Circle, and it is a site from prehistoric Neolithic period built between 6,000 and 3,000 years ago. They think it took about 1,000 years to build, so it's over a long period of time. And these stones you can see, they actually used to be upright, but then in the medieval period they pushed them down due to anti-pagan feelings, or like wanting to encourage people to basically not be pagan anymore. And they believe the site mainly had a ceremonial purpose. As you can see, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it is one of the oldest and most complete prehistoric sites in the Peak District, but it hasn't been excavated for over like 100 years, hence why its appearance is very mossy, and I would say it's not quite on the tourist trail. It's kind of off the beaten track, but if you like prehistoric history like I do, definitely worth a visit.
This is just remarkable, really.
And it's kind of retained its spiritualism maybe a bit more.
And this is the second time I've been here, and on that occasion I had even more of that feeling, but I think that was a warm sunny day, so that might have helped.
Yeah, it's
a bit windy and fresh.
Not warm today. I'm only wearing a jumper. I should have had more layers. Another thing worth knowing, this is an English heritage site, but as far as we can tell it's absolutely free. I think maybe at times, like in the more popular seasons, there's a donation box from the farmer, but we haven't seen one. If we see one, we probably will give a small donation, but in theory you can come here for free if you wanted to. And as Mum said off camera, it'd be a really nice place to have a picnic on a sunny day, so you know, not bad really. We've now just walked a little way over because we're heading towards Gib Hill, which is a tomb of the ancestors. So they think Gib Hill was built about 4,000 years ago and is one of the earliest tombs of the ancestors. It's also starting to rain, so I'm going to put on my Mac. We are now Mac'd up because it's starting to rain, which I think just sums up this holiday, to be honest, weather-wise. Can't trust the rain. And we are making our way to Debauer, which is older than the Arbor Stone Circle, and it was a burial site. What's the view like? actually Saturday. I didn't record anything on Friday. There was nothing really exciting to record, but I thought I'd give you a quick update on how my reading is going. I have finished the bride test, which I thought was incredible. I gave it 5 stars. I have nearly finished this. I'm about 20 pages off. I think it's interesting, but I think this was published a little while ago and I've read the information kind of in other forms and in other ways. So a lot of it I already knew, maybe not in the same level of detail, but I kind of knew the arguments, if that makes sense. This one, I am now like 250 pages in, so progress is being made, but slowly. And then I read this one, which I gave 3 stars. I thought it was okay, but nothing spectacular. But yeah, that's been my week in Derbyshire. I hope you've really enjoyed it, and I hope you like this kind of content because we've got at least another week of it. I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.